Bonjour everyone, I am Anne-Lise Cailliez and welcome to Parlez-Vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-Vous CEO. My name is Anne-Lise Cailliez and I am your host, and I'm so excited to have with me Emily Fries. So meet Emily. Emily is a marriage and family therapist who founded New Beginnings Counseling Group and the Utah Reproductive Mental Health Network. She specializes in helping couples and women navigate infertility, pregnancy loss, and maternal mental health. Emily, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you today on the show. In your own words, and for the people who are just discovering you today, could you share a little bit about your background and story?
I would love to. First of all, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm really excited to be here and to have this opportunity. A little bit about myself. I actually went back to school when I was 42 years old to become a marriage and family therapist. So I had a lot of life experience before I decided to do that. And with that life experience, it really helped shape me in my career, actually. I went through my own personal journey of infertility and struggled with postpartum depression post having two sets of twins from an IVF procedure. And so that was very formative in my development as a clinician in specializing in the areas that I've chosen to specialize in, and has been really, really a benefit for me. As I mentioned, I have two sets of twins, two boys that are 27 and two girls that are 24. I am a new grandmother. I have a little grandson who's almost 9 months old, and he is totally the joy of our family, and we're so happy to have him with us. I've been married for 34 years to my husband, Craig, and we've had a wonderful life together, lots of adventures, living all over the country, and settling here in Utah has been a wonderful opportunity to kind of settle into a new lifestyle, but it's been wonderful. We've really loved it here.
That's awesome. Emily, thank you for sharing. So could you share with us a little bit about why you started New Beginnings Counseling Group instead of a solo practice?
Well, I actually did start as a solo practice. I had lived in Indiana for 13 years, and that's where I had done my graduate work at Indiana Wesleyan University. My husband was recruited for a new job and transferred us here to Utah. So when I first got here, I didn't know anybody in terms of joining a practice. I decided to go ahead and start my own practice. So I was a solo practitioner for about a little over a year. And then I have a cousin that lives here, and she is married to a licensed clinical social worker. So because we had a lot in common in terms of our interest area with mental health, we decided to join and create a group practice. In 2019, August of 2019, we established New Beginnings Counseling Group, and it was 3 of us when we first started. So it was really an opportune time, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we had just hired 2 additional therapists, and we had no idea how that was going to work. We were a little nervous about having hired somebody and then having COVID hit. We didn't know how that was going to go. But COVID ended up being really the catalyst for the growth and development of our practice. And we expanded to 3 locations here in Utah County. So we have over 30 clinicians now, and we have 5 administrative staff. And so it's just really grown in ways that I could have never imagined when I first started.
Oh, that's amazing. And so you've grown from 1 location to 3. What did you feel, Emily, surprised you the most about scaling?
Well, it kind of happened on accident. When we started to realize that we were outgrowing our original space, we thought, well, let's kind of look around and just see what might be available. And we actually found a perfect location up in Lehi. It was an office that had 3 office spaces. It was not huge, but it was the perfect size for us to start the expansion. Then, ironically, a few months later, we felt inspired to open up another location in American Fork. So within a 6-month period of time, we actually added 2 new locations, and it ended up working out perfectly. We just kept adding new clinicians. We had a lot of demand for therapists, and because I wanted to specialize our practice in maternal and reproductive mental health, we kept hiring individuals who had that same kind of passion, and also who were willing to do the training to be a specialist in that area. So that is kind of the arm that I've developed. My business partner, Jason Wooten, he takes on more of a men's mental health arm and does a lot with working with men's issues, specifically working with addictions and pornography specifically. So he's definitely done a different arm than I have in our practice. And I think it's been very complementary. We really have been able to merge some of my passions and his passions into one. And couples kind of are in the middle of all of that. So we do a lot of work with couples, and we have started to expand some of our other specialty areas to include eating disorders, OCD, and actually starting to add a little bit with children and adolescents. So we are open to a lot of different areas of growth, and we have a lot of amazing therapists who are anxious to learn and develop themselves in different specialties. So it's been an amazing thing to see the growth and the development in our practice to begin with, from where we first started.
And speaking of growth, what have you felt have been the type of marketing that actually brings the right patients through your door?
That's an excellent question. I think for me personally, one of the areas that I have really tried to focus my marketing is in the populations that I serve the most. So I've involved myself in conferences where we set up a vendor table and we advertise to not only the community but also to other therapists so that they know what we do in terms of a specialty. So I go to infertility conferences as well as general conferences so that people that are there that we meet can know what our specialties are, and that we can really help in supporting our community in the areas that we specialize in. Another area that we have recently done, we just moved to a newer location in American Fork, a larger space, and we actually hosted a large networking event for a variety of different practitioners, medical personnel, and community organizations that touch the populations that we serve. And that was a huge success. We had tons of people show up to that, and really to learn about other people that we can learn to send referrals to, or they can send referrals to us, and just feel supported in the work that we all do to try to help other people. So that's kind of 2 different strategies that we've taken. I really have tried to focus at least my energy in going out into the community. Another thing that I have also done, I actually did earlier today, was speak. I love to go out and I love to speak about some of the things that I'm passionate about. And I'm able to market our practice by being able to share some of my expertise with the other people that I am able to talk with. So those are some of my strategies that I've used.
Amazing. Emily, what would you say are the most challenging part about being a practice owner that nobody warned you about?
I think the biggest thing that I've struggled with is managing my passion to want to actually do therapy and do successful business. So really balancing out why I got into the field in the first place is to be a helper. I want to be able to help people in their mental health challenges and struggles, and to provide resources and tools and strategies in the work that I do as a therapist. I think the biggest challenge then is wanting to do that alongside trying to maintain a successful business model and the time and energy that requires. So I honestly do a lot of work from home after hours because that's the only time I really have. I'm not available to do business when I'm sitting face to face with a client. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I have, is trying to balance those 2 things that I'm responsible for.
If you had a magic wand that could fix one thing in your business today, what do you think it would be?
I think probably in answer to that question, some of the human resource struggles that we have where we have to make business decisions. And because we have therapists, there's an emotional component to some of our business decisions that they may not fully comprehend or understand why we're doing what we're doing. So, for instance, a big thing that we do in our practice is we are an insurance-based practice. So we have compliance that and legal responsibilities that we've agreed to in paneling with insurance companies. And so when we have to be really rigid in how much time we bill for, because there are certain billing codes within the time that we allot in face-to-face with our clients, that when we bill for that specific code, it has to correlate with the time it was actually spent. And so in order for us to comply to that, there might be a lower payment from an insurance company if we are not meeting the higher criteria. And so we've had to ask our clinicians to start tracking their time very specifically, and that if they don't meet certain criteria, that they have to bill for the lesser code. And basically what that means is they get less money. And so sometimes they'll get frustrated with that process, and we have to remind them we didn't make the rules, we just have to enforce them. So if I could, wave a magic wand, it would help them to understand why we do what we do and to know that we are doing everything we can to support them. But we also have a legal responsibility and an ethical responsibility to do what's right in terms of billing. So that's an example of something I wish we could do, is just have our clinicians understand the business model and why we have to do what we have to do.
Yeah, so you're a therapist and you still work one-on-one with clients. You still do clinical work. You still have to oversee therapists. How are you able to navigate all of that world altogether while running a business? Because it's really almost like two sides of the brain, right? There's the business side and there's the human side. So what have you figured out for yourself to make it all work in harmony?
Yeah,
which I'm sure is challenging.
It is. I think probably one of my greatest assets is having a business partner. And we really do complement each other quite a bit in terms of areas of focus, in terms of the business and the business development. So, for instance, I have assumed the role and responsibility over the clinical side, making sure that all of my clinicians are complying, doing things in an ethical way, making sure that they are getting adequate training and support and supervision. So if something happens that impacts the business, for instance, and it has a clinical arm to it, I take the role and responsibility to follow up from the clinical standpoint. My business partner then takes more of the marketing and development side. But the beauty about that is that we're aligned in of all of that. And so the thing that we've learned that's been really challenging is making sure that we're carving out consistent weekly meetings so that we can meet the responsibilities of the business, so that I know what he's doing, he knows what I'm doing, and that we are supporting one another so that the business is running well, in addition to carving the time out that we've chosen to work with our clients. So I think that's been really kind of the biggest thing, especially with such a large group practice, is having a partner to really support areas that I may not have the time or the focus or even the expertise to do, where he does a lot of the operational side and the organization of communication and other things between clients and clinicians and our administrative staff. He takes more of that kind of a role, and I've done more of that clinical side.
That sounds like an amazing partnership and really complementary. It's really powerful in any kind of business. I'm glad you have that for yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that usually happen is that it's only the female that will show up in therapy instead of them as a couple. So what I'll do is in that initial meeting, if it's the female that's showing up who's struggling with the infertility or the pregnancy loss, I will always ask about their spouse or their partner and make sure that they know that they are always invited. Because when a couple goes through anything that is as devastating as infertility, pregnancy loss, or a birth trauma of some sort, it is not just one, it is both. And I think especially because of the way men are socialized, there's not a lot of room, or there might be a negative stigma about coming in and asking for help when there's a grief or loss or just a difficulty in managing different emotions. Men and women show up differently. Women are sad and men get mad when they're depressed. So being able to help normalize some of the emotions can be really helpful for individuals and couples. To know that they're not alone is another key factor in knowing that there is support. I personally have a history of infertility and pregnancy loss. And so that, of course, was a big driver for me to specialize in what I chose to specialize in. So I think the thing that is so important is for them to know that there is something. We did not have that when I was going through my own experience. The focus on mental health, the mind-body connection was not emphasized. And so I'm grateful that I get to be a part of that trend of providing more support for couples so that they know that there are resources, there are tools, there are strategies, and just overall support to help them go through really difficult, very challenging situations.
Emily, what do you feel is the thing that lights you up the most about your career?
Oh my goodness, that is a loaded question. There are so many things that I am so passionate about. I think I am one of those very few individuals in this world that love what they do. I look forward to going to work every day. I know I'm going to be faced with a lot of different challenges, some of which I can't even anticipate, even if I've worked with people for a long period of time. I never know what each day is going to bring. But what I do know is that my relationship with my clients is a primary focus in helping them feel safe, to help them feel confidence in the things that I am trying to provide for them. And sometimes as a clinician, you have to say hard things. You have to bring things into people's awareness that are really difficult to say. But if we don't say that, then we can't really help them. And so I think one of the areas that I find the most joy and satisfaction in is helping individuals work through traumas, particularly pregnancy loss or birth trauma, being able to help individuals who come in devastated to be able to leave at some point in their journey with more hope and more healing than they did when they first came in. And I've just seen miracles happen with the work that I do. I've been trained in EMDR as well as ART, which stands for Accelerated Resolution Therapy, which is another trauma treatment. And within a 1 hour period, I can work through a specific trauma and it can totally change their perspective on what happened to them after years and years of suffering, to walk out an hour later and have a completely different perspective on what happened to them. So those are the miracles that occur in my presence that I really hold very sacred, to be able to witness that in people's lives, and what drives me to continue to learn and to grow and to become a better therapist.
Amazing. Wow, that is so powerful. And did you ever imagine, Emily, that you would end up having this type of career, being both a business owner and having such an impact, an immediate impact on people's life?
I had no idea that I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I think it's interesting how life evolves. And if you are open and you are willing to take risks, that life will become more than you could have ever imagined. And I think that's kind of what I'm living right now. Is when I very first moved out here to Utah, my plan was to just open my own little practice and be by myself. But as the need grew and as I realized that it was beyond my capacity to be able to do it all, and I started to open up my mind to the possibility of creating a group practice, I could have never imagined having the volume of clinicians that work for me and the size of our practice that has grown over the course of 6 years. But it is something I am incredibly proud of. Sometimes I think, I don't know how this happened. Sometimes I feel like I was flying by the seat of my pants, but obviously it was meant to be. And I do believe that. I believe that there are people that come into your lives that guide you and direct you and encourage you in ways that if you are willing and open to take those risks, that it will work out. And you realize just how strong you are, because that's the only choice you have. So that's kind of how it's ended up for me. And I honestly could never have imagined being where I am right now. I never considered myself an entrepreneur in any way, shape, or form, but it's been an amazing journey to see the growth and development, not only in my career as a therapist, but also as a business owner.
That's amazing. That's so inspiring. And to this day, do you still have sometimes or at all any imposter syndrome?
Absolutely, for sure. I think realizing that what we have built is sustaining people's lives, that what we do and how our business is running is income for people's lives and for their families. And there are many times when I feel overwhelmed with the role and the responsibility of that. And I think, I don't know, if I'm doing the right thing. But I think one of the things that I really pride myself on is to be a servant leader, to invite feedback from my employees, to make it as democratic as possible so that I'm not micromanaging them or forcing them to do things without considering their voice. And knowing that they know that helps them feel safe to come to me if they have a concern, and to know that I'm in the trenches with them. I think that's one of the things I've heard back from some of my clinicians, is that they're glad to know that we're doing the same work that they are. I mean, we're running the business on top of everything, but I think that helps them know that, we're in this together. We're not just feeding off of their income. We're doing the work right alongside them. And I think that has been really helpful in developing me as a leader, in knowing that we've been very intentional with the culture that we've chosen. I think, when you've had previous experiences that have been difficult or negative, we pride ourselves, Jason and I, on really being intentional with how we go about being leaders and owners of this company, and that we value our employees, that we are very family focused, very family friendly. We are very flexible so that, if there are family emergencies or if somebody has a baby, that we let them make the decision for themselves what they need as far as how much time they take. And I think that has really paid off well, to have incredibly loyal and incredibly dedicated clinicians that are just phenomenal human beings. And then to know that they are doing incredible work is just the cherry on top.
That's amazing. And Emily, if you were meeting your 20-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give her?
Wow, that's a really deep question. I think to trust herself more, to be willing to work through fear and anxiety, and that the risks that she would take would be beyond what she could have ever imagined for herself. That taking the risk is the hardest step, but then in my experience, thankfully, I know it's not that way for everybody, but thankfully the risks that we've taken, not knowing what the outcome was going to be, we still were able to succeed. And maybe not even succeed in the way that we anticipated, but that, having more confidence in herself to know that it was all going to work out. And, I think back on my 20-year-old self, I didn't even know I was going to get a master's degree. So just knowing what I've been able to do and accomplish in my life, I could have never imagined where I am now back then. And so telling my 20-year-old self that you're going to have the ride of your life, and it's going to be an amazing adventure and journey, and to just be trusting in yourself and in the process.
Wow, I love that. Emily, where can people find you, and what is due for the business for this upcoming year?
Well, that's a great question. Well, you can get on our website, which is www.nbcgutah.com. And it has tons of information of the services that we're providing. I think one of the exciting things that we have going on this upcoming year is really focusing on marketing and business development, really trying to think, where do we want to take our business in the next 5 years? Being very intentional about that and seeking outside counsel. Up until this point, we've done a lot of internal resourcing and, utilizing the resources that we have that are closest to us. But because we do want to grow and develop, we are looking for more professional resources outside of ourselves. We're proud of what we've been able to build, but we also know that there's a lot more opportunity. And so we are very open to learning and growing in terms of business development. So we're actually partnering with Goldman Sachs. We were given the opportunity to work with them in what they call the 10,000 Small Business program, where they're teaching us a lot of information in terms of our personal growth and development. So I think that's going to be a huge, huge advantage this next year as we really hone in on what have we done, where are we going, and where do we want to be? And I think that that'll be really helpful. So that's one of the key areas that we're focusing in on right now.
Amazing. And I wish you the best with all these new projects. That sounds really exciting. This is going to be a fun year ahead.
Yes, for sure. We're excited about it.
Thank you again, Emily, for coming on the show today. It was really a pleasure getting to know you and hear about your story and your business, and really inspiring. Thank you again.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure of mine as well.
Thank you. And that wraps up today's episode. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thanks for listening to Parlez-Vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-Vous CEO. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.